Remember Yokozuna, the sumo who brought his learnings from the ancient Japanese art of wrestling to a more mainstream, entertainment-driven form of wrestling in the Americas? Well, the car I have with me here today has a similar vibe. This is the Lexus RC F. Lexus is known for its radical and sophisticated luxury cars and crossovers, but once in a while, they build sports cars too. The legacy has some big names like the LFA, a limited edition sports car that created records and broke glasses with its wailing soundtrack. The RCF belongs to the same bloodline, but it sits lower down the order where it takes on the likes of the Audi RS5 or the BMW M4. It is based on the Lexus RC 2+2 Coupé. It borrows bits from the legendary LFA, plonks in a more powerful engine, and adds the necessary supplements to the bodywork to make the surface more slippery and help the engine breathe better. With a drag coefficient of 0.33 though, it isn't as aerodynamic as it looks. But if looks could kill, the RCF could slice right through you, and it has plenty of sharp edges to do just that. The outrageous spindle grille takes center stage, and though it looks out of place on some of the other Lexus models, it fits right in with all the angular cuts, pinch creases, and the domed roof of the RCF. I particularly like the headlamps with their 3-pot layout and a crystalline design for the LED lens. The daytime running lamps that underline the headlights look quirky and in turn quite distinctive. There is an air duct behind the front wheel arch which creates a leading edge at the top for a sharp shoulder line, while the bottom end of the channel flows cleanly into the rocker panel. This in turn makes the flared wheel arches and the rocker panel jut out quite a bit, giving the door a negative offset. The result is that the light and shadow surfaces have clear definition, and the RCF doesn't look as busy as its bodywork would otherwise suggest. The tail looks quite funky. While the shape and the detailing of the tail lights is pretty average compared to the rest of the car, the angled exhaust pipes attract attention. The two-tone bumper looks good, but is set quite high for a sports car. To me, the overall proportions and the outrageous design elements give the RCF far more character than the M4 or the RS5 that it rivals. Or maybe I just have a soft corner for the Japs and their anime-inspired cars. I'm sure from where you're watching, the spoiler, the roof, and the hood, they all look black, but if you look closely, it's all carbon fiber. I like the overall color combination and the kind of metallic paints that have been chosen for this car, but what I like more is the attention to detail. Like for example, you have a gunmetal finish on the wheels and it matches the gunmetal finish on the grille. And if you look at the details, that is what sets this car apart. It has a tuner car vibe to it, but it's the attention to detail that sets Lexus apart. The carbon fiber also finds its way inside the cabin to create some tastefully crafted inlays. The layout of the dashboard fascia and the switchgear is quite simple and easy to understand. I like the matte finish touch panel for the AC controls. Feels novel and premium. It's quite a practical cabin in here. I have seat ventilation, I have a nice air conditioning system with a climate control system, of course expected at this price range. I also get 2 cup holders. The door pads obviously don't have enough space for a 1-liter bottle, and but apart from that, I have a small little cubby hole here. I can store away my phone, a little bit of knickknacks. I get 2 USB ports, I get a 12-volt charger, and the infotainment system, which is controlled by this awkward touch system. It's still better than the joystick that you have on the other Lexus models that are sold in India, but getting used to this is a bit of a problem. Apart from that, I love this cabin. The front seats are nicely bolstered to hold you in place around fast switchbacks, and these, along with the steering, are electrically adjustable. There are 2 average size seats at the back for 2 kids or short adults. As with any low-riding coupe, ingress and egress isn't as easy as a sedan, making the M4 or the RS5 feel a tad bit more practical in that sense. Powering the RCF is a 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 which has been doing duty in Lexus cars for quite some time now. This one though gets titanium valves and lighter camshafts and conrods for weight reduction. The engine also revs higher and therefore gets larger throttle bodies too. Under 4000 RPM, There's no real drama, no oral drama either. Past 4000 RPM though, the engine gets in its zone. It quickly uses its power band to get to the red line. Before you know it, you're doing some crazy speeds. 0 to 100 takes about 4.6 seconds. And while it's getting there, at about the 5000 RPM mark, the crankshafts change timing, all the intake flaps are wide open, the transmission sounds are more audible, and what you get is the typical oral bliss of a V8. It doesn't sound as angry as the RS5, but is so much better than the orchestrated sounds of the M4. I even like the instrumentation. It's got a nice design, it's got two big bezels that sort of show you an analog clock, but it's actually digital. You have a rev counter that takes center stage. You also have an old school analog clock for the speedometer, and that really looks nice. But it's the digital display right in the center, the rev counter. That is what has my fancy. The dials and the hood scoop are inspired from the LFA. The beauty of the motor is how it can manage to be a well-mannered pet at lower revs and a monster when you push the pedal further in. What goes against it though is its heavy build. The RCF borrows its front and rear from a performance sedan, while the passenger cell comes from a convertible. This hybrid construction gives it a stiff core and a more harmonious body balance, but it all tips the scales over 1.8 tons. Hence the sumo wrestler reference. The weight has its implications on outright performance and braking. The brakes on the RCF, they do feel a little wooden. You really have to give it a firm push when you're doing speeds of over 200 kilometers an hour when you want to brake to get into that corner. Also, it needs a little getting used to. If you're looking for a track tool or a drag racer, the M4 easily wins the battle. Where the RCF shines though is on the road. It has a supple ride that's marginally better than the RS5 and something that the M4 can only dream of. While the rigid chassis gives it better precision and point-and-shoot dynamics than the RS5. The 8-speed transmission is quite quick and predictable too. The icing on the cake, however, is the optional torque vectoring differential or TVD. Unfortunately, it adds even more weight, but completely changes the dynamics of this car. It has 3 modes to choose from: normal, track and slalom. Now the Japanese, they love autocross, they love slaloms, don't they? So much so that the RCF actually has a slalom mode. I'm going to attempt that right now. So what that does is it has different torque vectoring on the differential for both the wheels, both the rear wheels. It will split the torque, or it can push all the torque to one wheel to make sure that there is enough grip and enough agility for you to be able to take that slalom. However, it's not that the slalom mode is only for actual slaloms. Where it really comes in handy in the real world is when you're driving around the twisties. Unlike a racetrack, the twisties where you have fast switchbacks, that is where this car will actually shine. In fact, the harder you push around winding roads, the more agile the car feels. A welcoming trait for drivers of all skill levels. Around the track though, faster corners will push her into understeer. And despite the rear-wheel driven configuration, she doesn't feel as tail happy. The RCF may not like the track after all, but at Toge racing, it could annihilate the competition. Independent of the TVD, the computers also let you choose between driving modes like Eco, Normal, Sport and Sport Plus. The modes are self-explanatory and will alter throttle response and transmission logic to match the dialed intent. The steering, however, has only 2 settings, Normal and Sport, with the latter gaining weight but making no difference at all to the feedback. The suspension remains unaffected too, as it isn't the adjustable kind. The suspension is tuned very well for driving around twisties and even on the road. It does have a stiff ride that you would expect from a sports car, but then it makes this car quite practical, something that you can actually use every day if you want to. It feels very tuner car in that sense, and I think it has its pros and cons, but from my point of view, I think that's a wonderful thing. It just feels so much nice to drive and at the same time so unique. Something that I would want in my garage, something that I would want to be parked outside my driveway. It just looks stunning. By Well, this is the Lexus RC F then. Very different from the kind of luxury cars that Lexus has been selling to us so far. Contrary to the reports though that this car has been launched in India, well, it hasn't. If you really want one, you could get in touch with Lexus, and as a goodwill gesture, they might consider and they might be able to get you one of these. And as a car, if you're looking for something that is more exclusive than maybe the BMW M4 or maybe the Audi RS5, I doubt there is anything in the market like the RCF that can do it for you.